I'm Mark Vernarelli. Welcome to Inside Harford County, a program where we sit down with our community leaders and discuss the issues important to the citizens of Harford County. Tucked between Aberdeen and Havre de Grace lies one of Harford County's absolutely hidden treasures, the Oakington Peninsula. This scenic stretch of land is slated to become a 1,400-acre park system, offering some fantastic opportunities for recreation, conservation, and community enjoyment. And that's what we're talking about today, talking about the Oakington Peninsula, what makes it so special, and what's ahead in the plans. County Executive Bob Cassilly is here, and Paul Magness, the Harford County Director of Parks and Rec. Paul, welcome back. Great to have you back.
Good to see you again, Mark.
We know when you're here, it's going to be something positive. And sir, I know that you're happy to talk about what is it that Mama used to say? They don't make land anymore. When you run out of land, there's no more to replace it. So we've been able to procure a big portion of this land.
And Paul gets a lot of credit for spearheading this thing over the years. But yeah, this is, like you said, it's 1,400 acres, all bayfront. We got about 2 miles of bayfront in all this. It's three big parcels. One is what we currently are operating as Swan Harbor Farms. So it's a wedding venue, and it overlooks the northern tip of the Chesapeake Bay, looks out on the Susquehanna Flats there in the bay. And next to that we have Bellevue Farms, which is the most recent acquisition. That's an historic farm. It was in the same family since before the Revolution. And they were looking at what to do with it. They were thinking they would sell it for development, but the family worked with the feds, the state, local, and a county, and now that's in our hands. And then we have a third piece that's it's called the Eleanor and Millard Tidings Park, which was the most distant piece, further out on the point there at the Peninsula, and that's the remnants of the old Senator Joe Tidings farm. That's what was left over. The county came into possession of that. So with all of this, it's huge and it's fantastic, and we're just really anxious to make it more available and accessible to the citizens of Harford County and the state of Maryland and beyond. And
you have some specific personal memories of this plot of land, right?
Well, it was my in-law, or my brother's-in-laws had it at the time, and I was a young man, spent many days and hours canoeing and hiking and looking for arrowheads. It was a rich arrowhead area. They would farm the fields, these big 100-acre fields, and every time you went through those fields, beautiful arrowheads would come up. So it was great, just a great piece of property, and to be able to allow the public to enjoy those views, the rocky coastline along the northern bay there, just fishing, hunting, you name it. It's all right there, and it's bringing the public onto it. It's a pleasure.
Paul, this must be a Park and Rec director's dream to be able to plan something like this. But a lot of people probably don't even know where Oakington Peninsula is. We say it's between Aberdeen and Havre de Grace, but it's a huge piece of land, actually stretches south of Aberdeen a little bit. That's how big it is. How do you even get to it?
Correct, yes. So again, it's just south of where the Susquehanna River flows into the Chesapeake Bay. If you're going up Route 40 at Oakington, or at, you would turn onto Old Post Road and come into Oakington Road. And that brings you right into the peninsula, takes you all through the properties throughout the peninsula from north to south.
And you can see from the map there, it is a huge piece of land. Most of us cannot really understand when you say 1,400 acres of 2 miles, whatever the measurement of distance. But that is a very large piece of land, and to have that size acquired is pretty impressive.
Oh, absolutely. It's, again, it is, for a park system for us, it is by far our largest park system. Almost 2.5 times the size of like a Heavenly Waters park system in Bel Air.
The county executive talked about the 3 areas of the park. Why don't you take them one by one and walk us through a little bit of what each of those areas is known for, or perhaps is going to be known for?
There you go. So again, Swan Harbor Farm is a property that we currently use primarily as a wedding venue, but we're also working to expand that for other meeting space and off-site locations. Historically, it's interesting because John Adlam was an original owner down there, purchased Swan Harbor in 1797, and he is a well-known winemaker at the beginning of the country. And in fact shared a number of vine cuttings with Thomas Jefferson at Monticello. So they're actually today vine cuttings down at Monticello that started at Swan Harbor.
And that is really interesting.
Exactly. It's a fascinating history that extends throughout the peninsula. As the county executive had mentioned, with Eleanor and Millard Tidings Park, The Tidings family owned that property, and former Senator Tidings lived there until he passed away. And then the family sold the family home to Ashley's Treatment Center, and then the rest of the farm they held until the county purchased it again in about the mid-90s. Again, you've got a historic amount of history there. You've got the historic barns that are there that can be also connected with the Havre de Grace horse racing that occurred at the time. And then we have Bellevue Farm, which again was the most recent purchase. Owned by the Davis family from the beginning, from pre-colonial times till today. And the house there is also a house that was built in about 1720, and that served as basically the foundation of the house that still stands there today. So there's a lot of history, again, a lot of history that we know from colonial time period forward.
Mr. Cassilly, we are blessed in Harford County to have a tremendous amount of waterfront, but we don't own a tremendous amount of waterfront because of Aberdeen Proving Ground, the Army stretching down south toward below Edgewood. Yeah. So to be able to acquire these types of properties is pretty amazing. It must have been quite an effort to stave off the development, wasn't it?
Yeah, I have to give a lot of credit to the family themselves, who were pretty determined if they could get a fair return on it. You got a larger family, you got to make everybody happy. So they did not take the most they could have gotten had they gone for development. But we were fortunate to be able to pull in the federal government, because Aberdeen Proving Ground is just across the bay from that. So they like, because they make noise, they like having non-housings along the bay there. So we were to pull them in, the state and then the county as well. So, but it was a heck of a find for the county, and I think we're all very fortunate to have had folks. And again, I give Paul some credit here for being out there, because somebody had to sell the beauty and the vision. So he's done a good job with that. And
a lot of folks probably think mistakenly that all that waterfront was owned by Aberdeen Proving Ground or the U.S. Army. And the fact you were able to get it, sneak in there and get it, not sneak in, but able to get it is great. Yeah. How about going back to Civil War history, Paul? There's some Civil War history there too as well, right?
Correct. Bellevue Farm is part of the National Underground Railroad Network to Freedom listing. So again, there were enslaved individuals who lived there, who then ultimately participated in the Christiana resistance up in Pennsylvania. And that, as many know, is kind of the precursor to the Civil War. So it just, again, calls to the history that exists throughout the peninsula, throughout the history of this country, and also in terms of very specific very specific opportunities and issues that existed and events that can be highlighted as part of the overall park system.
You mentioned a little bit on it, touched on a little bit on it earlier, famous occupants. There have been a few who've lived on that property, right?
Correct. We mentioned former Senator Tidings. We've had two different Maryland State Senate presidents. Dr. Elijah Davis lived on Bellevue, and then Herman Stump lived on what is now Eleanor and Millard Tidings Park. Another interesting sort of local county fact is there was a gentleman, Jonathan Stump, who owned where Eleanor and Millard Tidings Park currently is, and at the time of his death, he was considered to be the richest man to ever live in Harford County.
Wow. Wow. What about artifacts? Have they found interesting artifacts? I'm sure they have in a property that historic.
Yes, over the years there have been a number of different efforts made through the Maryland Historic Trust, as well as through the Maryland Archaeological Association, to do some fact-finding around the facility, particularly focused more on the Swan Harbor. But now that we own, obviously, Bellevue and then the rest of Eleanor and Millard Tidings Park, we're going to expand those efforts as part of the overall park development. One, to make sure that we're not disturbing things that we shouldn't as part of the development, but also to look for opportunities that might be some opportunities for the public to come out and appreciate maybe some hands-on opportunities with regards to these relics.
And you talk about disturbing things that are there. Is this not in the critical bay area? Is that what is known as kind of a semi-protected area that you have to keep an eye on conservation efforts, for example?
Oh yes, absolutely. You know, the environmental and conservation efforts are also a second pillar of what we looked at throughout this process. There are over 700 acres of the entire peninsula that is within the Chesapeake Bay critical area. So they obviously have the existing additional protections that come with them when it comes to consideration of what we can do there and what we can't do there.
Mr. Cassilly, let's go back for just a minute to talk about acquiring the land. Sure. If it's in private hands, is it difficult to, or lengthy negotiation to work with folks? You touched on a little earlier about how they could have gone in several different directions. Is that something that took years to accomplish?
Yeah, it did. And you know, the county acquires property rights frequently, but these are often, we do our ag preservation program where we preserve farms. Those discussions can take over a decade, you know, where the farmer gets interested in it and then decides they're going to sell their development rights. And the same with these. These are people have owned these properties for literally hundreds of years, and that's a big transition to say, okay, we're going to take it out of the family. But fortunately, you know, both the property that's the Swan Harbor, that was we've been very fortunate that one was originally donated to Johns Hopkins University. To try to protect that, and then the university didn't want it, so the county was able to acquire that one. And the same thing with the Bellevue. The Davis family was interested in preservation, but, and then the Tidings are the same way. The Tidings family at the end. So the three big landowners were very much interested in preservation and trying to work with the county. But even with that, you know, you have big families, a lot of different interests. Takes a little while to get things done. And in these cases, it's been decades, but the final result, and thank God for people who, you know, they've got some money, but they want to look beyond just, money isn't everything. They want to leave a legacy. And we did the same thing. If you look the Kelly family, what we have, the Leary-Dendron in Bel Air. He was one of the founders of Johns Hopkins Hospital. Well, the family could have developed that one extensively, but they wanted to do something that was more going to put it in the hands of the people so everybody could enjoy it the way they had. So we've been blessed to have some big families like that in Harford County who look beyond just grabbing the money and we're out to work with the community and give us all something to enjoy.
Yeah, thank goodness. Paul, I would imagine it's safe to say it's a very unspoiled piece of land for the most part, the entire peninsula. So are there a lot of interesting plants and birds, for example, aquatic life? What do you have over there?
Oh, there are a multitude of over 250 species of birds have been recorded throughout the peninsula. It is a major thoroughfare, essentially, for migrating birds throughout the seasons, both in the spring and fall. It's a very popular birding spot. Swan Harbor Farm, we have the Ducks Unlimited Pond, which is a big attraction, but just throughout the entire peninsula being there right on the water. There are also 4 rare, threatened, and endangered species with the state of Maryland, including, the Maryland burr marigold as a plant, and then you also have the Maryland darter fish. So there are, again, lots of different ecological and environmental features that, again, as part of the development as we move forward with it, will obviously be taken into account as we develop out this park system.
And it's so exciting to think that the public can learn about these types of things that heretofore have been just completely unknown or not even thought of.
Right. Well, and again, we've also, another environmental feature is there's over 500 acres of forest already existing on the property. So again, lots of opportunity for forest interior dwelling species. So again, a multitude of different wildlife features in addition to the historic features that are there.
Mr. Cassilly, before we let Paul get into the specifics and you get into the specifics of what you envision, what about the planning for this? It goes back 10 to 15 years, and you're looking 10 to 15 years ahead.
Sure, and Paul's department held a number of listening sessions with the community members, not just the local community, but the bigger Harford County community who paying some of the bill on this thing. So talking to everybody, and there was a lot of discussion about what do people envision for this property. So trying to coalesce that and being true to the historical and environmental nature that what we're dealing with here. We're looking at a series of hiking trails, running trails, some horse trails, nature center, picnic areas, picnic overlooks, waterfront, water access piers. It's a great place to launch your canoes and your kayaks and the like. Historical demonstrations, obviously then the usual, some little kids' playground and restrooms, and some areas that potentially we could have some active recreation and for music presentations and the like, bring people out. So it's got a lot of potential. Currently there's a number of very large, like 100-acre sort of fields that we lease out for farmers. So they're still being, a big piece of the property is still being farmed. But over time, those will be consumed by the walking trails as we bring the public in, let them really enjoy this property.
Paul, what about the Nature Center? Even the smallest parks in various jurisdictions around Baltimore have really thrived because they have built even small nature centers. You have a chance here to really have quite a nature center if you go in that direction, right?
Correct, and as we talked about at the beginning, this is at the mouth of the Susquehanna and the Chesapeake Bay. It fits in almost perfectly with, we have the Anita C. Light Estuary Center, which is part of the Chesapeake Bay Estuarine Research Reserve Center, Research Reserve Group. This could be, a nature center here could be a natural offshoot of that and included as part of that research reserve area, which provides a lot of hands-on opportunities for the public as well as for researchers to develop information and do experimentations in terms of what is happening to the water and what we can do to make it better.
How about trail systems? I wouldn't even know where to start in a piece of land that big. How do you sit down and say, here's where we start, here's where we're going, here's how many trails we're going to have?
Certainly. A lot of what we do is look at the opportunity for kind of what I would call a main artery trail or artery trails. So you identify 2 or 3 maybe major pieces that run and connect the properties together from north to south. In addition to that, we already have an existing connection that actually takes you over to the city of Havre de Grace limits. So you look at that system and then say, okay, what are the offshoots that can come from that? So again, the focus we'll have over the next couple of years is developing sort of that main artery, creating that trail that runs from Swan Harbor Farm all the way down and into Eleanor and Millard Tidings Park, and then look for offshoots from there in terms of what makes sense, what's the next area that might be developed as part of a historic preservation effort or an ecological or environmental feature that we want to highlight as part of that. What else might also exist? We have, one of our partners is the Lower Susquehanna Heritage Greenway. They have a whole network system throughout the region that obviously this would be ultimately another southern connection to. So it's looking for those types of opportunities, those types of partnerships that could create the chance to, again, create that fully integrated trail system as the plan works its way out over the next 15 to 20 years.
And of course, there's a water trail, if I can use that phrase. It's not just on land, but you have a potential for a water trail type system. How's that going to work?
Oh, absolutely. So there already exists an opportunity for people to pull into a canoe or kayak at Swan Harbor Farm. We have identified 3 other areas along the peninsula that could serve as, again, a canoe and kayak launch area that would allow folks, if they felt really ambitious, they could go all the way down and around the point, or if they wanted to go from a shorter trip from point A to point B. Additionally, obviously, you have Havre de Grace Yacht Basin. So again, in theory, much like you could walk from downtown Havre de Grace to the edge of the peninsula one day, you will be able to boat or canoe or kayak from the Havre de Grace Yacht Basin and stop at various points along the way along Oakington Peninsula. And actually, the water trail is adjacent to the Captain John Smith Historic Water Trail, which again is the trail that John Smith took when he arrived in America and did his documentation of his experience on the Chesapeake Bay.
Mr. Cassilly, you have to be salivating thinking about the tourism aspect of this, not just for the local citizens to explore their own county, but for people on 95 who come down and may see Havre de Grace from the highway bridge and say, or Port Deposit and say, these are cute looking towns and let's go visit them. But in the tourism is a big deal for this.
Yeah, look, this is not a quick turnaround for us. We're setting the table here for future generations to develop these trails. But these are certainly going to be a trail system that attracts people from out of state. With this, what the potential is here, folks are going to sort of, you can think other major parks where really become a regional attractor, and this one will become that. And it's going to grow. We'll grow it piecemeal by piecemeal. We're still working on the Mon Paul Trail in Bel Air after 3 decades. So we just keep growing and growing, and it's a great opportunity for this generation and for future generations to create really legacy projects that are just going to enrich so many lives that don't yet exist.
I want to talk about the Mon Paul Trail in a minute, but Paul, I wanted to ask you first, What is the next step? What is the next step for developing this tremendous peninsula?
So the next step for us is actually the beginning of that trail system, focusing on the development of that first segment, that first phase of the trail throughout the peninsula, working from there, particularly specifically to kind of connect Swan Harbor Farm to Bellevue Farm, and then to work from there again with our partners on opportunities as we look to expand out from that.
You talked about the Ma and Pa Trail, Mr. Cassilly, and it's interesting you brought that up because, as you said, it's taken decades to connect the dots there, literally to connect one section to the second to the third, and we're still working on that. What is the latest on the Ma and Pa Trail? And we ask that because there are some lessons that can be learned with Oakington from what we've been through with the Ma and Pa Trail.
Yeah, so we're on the third, the final leg. So the trail currently runs from Falston at Annie's Playground into downtown Bel Air, and then back around and heads back out towards the other side of Bel Air. And this third leg, when it's in, it will have a full 8-mile trail from Falston into Bel Air and then back out to Forest Hill. It goes, there's an underpass already there under the Bel Air bypass, and we're looking at completion in June of 2026. We'll have a full 8-mile trail, fingers crossed. Things are moving on schedule. We'll have a full 8-mile trail one way, 8 miles, and it's pretty special.
That's been years in the making. That's not
years.
something that people sit down, you and Paul, over a cup of coffee and say, okay, next couple of weeks we'll do this and this. These are things that take a lot of time and negotiation.
And the Oakington Peninsula is going to be the same way. The trails will evolve over decades to come. We get grants, donations. We're always looking for that business that wants to have the Exxon Mobil trail or whatever, whatever you want. If you'll donate the funds to do that, or maybe in honor of someone who's deceased, if their family wants to have a long-term legacy for them to name a trail after them. So we'll invest slowly in these things and just keep it moving. The end, though, is everybody in Harford County should be excited for the potential here, what this means for all of us.
And Paul, we can't say this enough from your perspective. This is a huge deal. You will probably never be involved in anything as big as this as a Park and Recs director in Harford County. Fair to say that?
Fair to say. Between that and the county you were talking about, the Ma and Pa Trail, that's one that, again, I worked on 2 of the portions of that trail, as well as obviously this portion. So it's a lot of big projects that I've been a part of at the department, and our department can be really proud of, and what we do in helping to provide positive opportunities for the citizens of our county every day.
You talk about the Ma and Pa Trail, and to think about the freight trains chugging along on all these curves and trestles and bridges. That was only 50-some years ago when they ripped the tracks up, or I guess about 60 years ago now.
65, yeah.
Late 50s, I think. But the point is, it takes a lot of vision and a lot of patience to do this type of project, and it's something you look at over the span of years, not just months or days.
Yeah, and when you see an obstacle, you recognize it's not a permanent obstacle. Someone will overcome those obstacles that we face. If you have a funding obstacle, it will come. Just you don't panic. You work through these things. There's always there's a will, there's a way, and been a lot of good. I think of all the people involved in moving the Ma and Pa Trail along from its initial inception until where it is today. People who are long gone now had the initial ideas and moved it slowly through the processes. And we're going to see the same thing with Oakington as folks bring in the funding for generations moving forward to really do the improvements. I look at that property, and it was a huge Indian. I mean, the number of arrowheads that you could find, it's just constant. You realize this was a major center of population well before we came, our ancestors came to this country, to this continent, and here we are. Now we get a chance to step in there and appreciate the beauty of it. So it's exciting. It's exciting to be part of that and to recognize that we're able to look back at what people saw thousands of years ago and bring that out for folks to enjoy again. It's really nice.
So what can people or businesses do who truly are interested in having a hand in this development? What do you suggest that they do? Do they contact you or contact Paul?
Absolutely. They can contact me or Paul. They can go to our county website. There's a presentation on the trail on our Parks and Rec piece of the web page. But feel free to, if you want to get involved, call our offices, either myself or Paul. We'd be delighted to talk to folks who are interested in becoming a part of this, particularly if they want to become part of the development of a trail or any other picnic pavilions, a lot of stuff people can get involved in. And that's one of our reasons to develop this plan and put it out there. It's an invitation. It's an invitation. You see a Peninsula plan that you really like and you want to put your money behind it, come and talk to us. We'll work with you and make sure that your dreams become a reality.
And Paul, your website's very important because you update that to try to make sure that the very latest information is on there so people can visit that at any time, right?
Absolutely. And I also want to mention, we also have a Facebook page on for Parks and Recreation. And coming soon, we're going to do signage throughout all of our park systems that will allow you to use QR codes to automatically connect you to our Facebook page.
Those QR codes, I never understand them, but boy, they are something else. So eventually we'll be able to actually put the phone up there and boom, you're transported to right there.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
That's amazing. How can you hold back on something like this? I'm not patient enough to say, oh, it's going to take 3 years, 4 years. You probably get a little impatient sometimes, don't you, trying to speed it up, but you know from your experience it can't be really speeded up. It has to take its time, right?
Everybody wants to finish it the day after we put things out there, and we understand and appreciate that passion. It's just a matter of making sure that as we work our way through the development process, we're respectful of the historic, ecological, and environmental features there, and don't make a mistake because we wanted to get it done too quickly. We try to do things right from the start, and then that way, at the end of the day, everybody forgets how long it takes once you open that trail up.
Absolutely. Paul, thank you so much for being here. County Executive Cassilly, always a pleasure.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much, and we're looking
you.
forward to the Oakington Peninsula, but not tomorrow. It'll take a little longer than that, but can't wait for that to happen. Thank you both very much for being here. Thank you for watching Inside Harford County, airing exclusively on Harford TV. Please join us again next month. I'm Mark Vernarelli.